In northwest Kenya's Turkana County, 4-year-old Peter is being measured by a health worker. He has been suffering from severe malnutrition. His mother, Helen Ettiman, hoped a course of ready-to-use therapeutic food would bring about his swift recovery. However, for months, the health center treating Peter ran out of supplies of RUTF. Current and former aid officials say it was Donald Trump's decision to dismantle the U.S. Agency for International Development and slash funding for global aid programs that severed a lifeline for children like Peter. With drought having killed off the family's livelihood in goat herding, Peter's mother had only foraged wild fruit to feed him.
Peter was born very playful, like any normal child, and while he was growing up, there was no food shortage. Now he is emaciated, and as you can see, he is not active because he has had no food. We normally depend on wild fruits when we don't have food. They have less energy and are not so nutritious.
RUTF is a nutrient-dense, peanut-based paste used to treat children with the most lethal forms of undernourishment. USAID has been funding roughly half the world's supplies. UNICEF, meanwhile, is the world's biggest RUTF buyer and distributor. It says drought has been increasing demand, while funding cuts for malnutrition screening mean children are reaching health facilities in a more critical condition. UNICEF said most of its funding for RUTF was restored in March, and in August, the U.S. State Department said it would provide an additional $93 million to UNICEF to procure and distribute RUTF for nearly 1 million children in 13 countries, including Kenya. However, health workers and aid officials in Turkana said it was taking time for the supply pipeline to recover. Nutrition officer Hadija Ahmed was visiting starving families at home in October with little to offer other than advice on a diverse diet, meaningless to those barely able to eat one meal a day. In November, Peter's clinic was finally restocked.
Weakened immunity, impaired brain development as well.
But Malaku Yerga says disruptions in intervention can have serious long-term physical and cognitive impacts on severely malnourished children. He's Africa director at Mercy Corps, a US-funded nonprofit.
These treatment gaps don't just slow recovery, but they also put children's lives in real danger. And for some, by the time treatment resumes, the window for saving their lives may have been already closed, and we might be late in the game.
Aid groups have reported at least a handful of deaths in other parts of Africa among malnourished children who had no access to treatment when US-funded programs were halted. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has repeatedly denied that anyone died as a result of the US cuts. Trump has said the US pays disproportionately for foreign aid and wants other countries to take up more of the burden. Other countries, including Britain and France, have also been scaling back aid to focus on domestic priorities. The State Department told Reuters Washington is addressing global malnutrition and food insecurity, including supporting life-saving interventions for children with severe acute malnutrition. But it said this help is not intended to replace local and regional responsibility.